Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are tuning in. Thank you so much for joining me today for my next installment of Facebook and Instagram Live. Really delighted to be here with you all today, giving another offering on the topic of mindful communication. Mindful communication. And if you checked in with my Facebook Lives or Instagram Lives in the past, you know that I do a series of these stretching about a month or so, leading up to an online meditation immersive program. And this is no different in that respect. And so I do want to talk just a little bit about the program before I actually get into the topic at hand. So the program title is entitled Mindful Communication. And over the 12 weeks of this immersion, we're going to take a comprehensive exploration into incorporating the qualities of mindfulness, kindness, and compassion into the ways that we communicate. And, very important to note, at the same time, not losing sight of our ability to be concise, direct, and very matter of fact in our conversations and interactions. The benefit of this type of practice tends to be a more clear, compassionate, and authentic way of communicating. Throughout the courses, throughout the course rather, throughout the 12-week course, we'll be meeting once a week. And all of the sessions are offered live. Nothing is pre-recorded. So I'm there with all of the cohort interacting and offering teachings and doing PowerPoints. There's also going to be breakout room opportunities, and we'll be pairing up to practice speaking and listening in particular ways with particular tools and techniques, some of which I will talk to today as well. So in the course, I'll be drawing primarily on the School of Nonviolent Communication, also Insight Dialogue, Somatic Psychology, and the early teachings of the Buddha as well. There'll be a good amount of meditation practice and informal practices offered so that we have the opportunity not only to study mindful communication, but to actually begin to communicate in this way and to bring these practices into our life. The retreat is offered, or the online meditation program is offered in two different sections to cater to two different time zones. Section A meets on Sunday evenings from 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. That's here in Thailand. So that equals to 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. on Sunday mornings, East Coast time. The second section, Section B, will meet on Monday mornings from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Thai time. That equals 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. on Sunday evenings, East Coast time. So to find out more about the program, to register, and about your time zones and things like that, you can go to my website, www.suchsweetthunder.org. There is a link there on the website that can take you to a world clock, so you can calculate what the time would be in your time zone. I highly recommend that. Everything is offered throughout all of the courses that I do. Everything is offered over Zoom and will be recorded and made available only to the retreat participants, so that we have the opportunity to create a container of safety and confidentiality. Very important, especially with the topic of mindful communication. That can be super important. So we can feel free to speak our mind without worry that somebody we don't know will hear us in that way. Okay. So I'd like to go ahead and move into the topic at hand, and I'd like to do that by way of a guided meditation. And for this practice, it can be helpful if you have some meaningful piece of artwork or image. This may be a little statue, maybe a stone or a rock, maybe your pet is sleeping nearby. Something that warms your heart. And we will use that item at the end of the practice as a way of returning back into the conversational space. We'll use that item as an anchor. So if you don't have something like that nearby, you can just go and get it really quick as I continue introducing the meditation practice. So the way I offer mindfulness and really all meditation practices, I feel that they can be done in any posture. Whether you'd like to do this standing or sitting down in a chair like I am, reclining on a couch or in a sofa or on a lazy boy chair. There's an airplane. You could do it standing up. Yeah. You could do it cross-legged, sitting on a cushion on the floor, if that's comfortable for you. And this can be done with your eyes open or closed. Whatever best supports you. And so in a few moments then I'll ring the bell and I'll guide us in. So the invitation here is just to arrive into this present moment. And there are many ways of arriving and connecting to the present moment. And for this practice, let's start with the experience of sound. So the invitation here is to simply become a listener of the present moment. So you might notice quiet sounds or loud sounds. There might be sounds generated by nature, such as the sound of bird songs or a rooster crowing, or a cat playing in the background, or a dog barking nearby. There might be a conversation unfolding in the distance. Maybe the sound of rain or wind. And there might be sounds generated by electronics or appliances, some type of machinery, like the occasional car or truck passing by, or airplane flying overhead. The gentle hum of a heater or a fan or an air conditioner. So just noticing the soundscape of the present moment. In addition to the sounds that are there, you might also notice a backdrop of silent space. Perhaps noticing that exchange that's always happening, that exchange between silence and sound. Sort of a never-ending dance, if you will. And while we're here listening to the present moment, I'd like to invite us to notice if we can meet each sound as it occurs. listening for the inception of each sound. Very often we might notice that we're behind the sounds, maybe just a half a second, or it could be a second or two. We might also notice that we're anticipating particular sounds. So for this practice, the invitation is to notice that contact that occurs as the sound lands on the ear. Also noticing the difference between the concept of the sound and the sound itself. For example, airplane is a concept. And the sound is an actual experience. Or if there's a heater or an air conditioner in your environment, heater, air conditioner, fans, these are concepts. What's the actual texture, the actual experience of the sound? So just resting, listening. While we're here listening to the present moment, if you notice your mind wandering into stories, just remember that's very normal. And we could simply label that thinking, letting the stories go and gently returning back to the present moment. Hearing, just hearing. And then in the next breath or two, the invitation is to bring awareness to the body. And simply noticing how the body feels in this current posture. Noticing the texture of clothing against the skin, coarseness or roughness, softness or smoothness. You might notice how the clothing shifts and moves across the torso with the rising and falling of each breath. And then we could include the areas of the body that are touched by the air, the temperature of the room. Warmth or coolness, maybe a light breeze. So the combination of the bare skin and the clothed skin gives us a full view of the entire body. And then, if you'd like, if you find it might be helpful, You could invite the tense areas of the body to relax and soften. Just extending a gentle invitation to the body to relax. So we're not trying to force anything or make the tension wrong or bad. We're just gently inviting. You might even use the breath as a guide here. When you breathe in, you could say to yourself, calm. And breathing out, smiling. Breathing in, calm. And breathing out, smiling. Maybe we'll do that a few times, and if your breathing rhythm doesn't match mine, that's fine. Please go at your own pace. So just noting at the very beginning of the in-breath, calm. The very beginning of the out-breath, smiling. Breathing in, calm. And breathing out, smiling. Breathing in, calm. Breathing out, smiling. And just settling with that for a few moments. And while we're here resting, connecting, I'd like to invite us to recall a time where we were with a friend or a family member or a stranger in conversation, and this person was really listening to us. That throughout that conversation, whatever we said, we knew the person we were talking to was really hearing us. They really got it. And just taking a few moments to settle in on an experience like that. And maybe this was a conversation with a family member around it could have been something pleasant. Maybe you went to see a concert, or you got a promotion, or you had a nice time with a loved one that you were sharing with this person. Maybe it was a topic that was quite stressful, sharing a loss, sharing something you might feel anxious about. But whatever the topic was, you knew this person was really hearing you, that your words were deeply received. What does that feel like? What does it feel like to be heard in this way? This might feel like a kind of settling in the body, kind of grounding, or a warmth maybe around the heart or the abdomen. That feeling of being heard and seen. Where does that land in the body for you? And in a few moments' time, then, we'll begin to shift away from the guided meditation and back into a conversational space. And I'll cue that by ringing the bell 3 times. And if your eyes are still closed, you might gently begin to open them. And when you do, gently open your eyes or raise your gaze, if your eyes were open, towards the meaningful object or artwork that I invited you to bring to the practice. And see if you can sort of titrate how much awareness is happening internally and how much awareness you're placing on that object. And so we can start, generally when we go into a meditation like the one we just did, we pretty much have most of our awareness on what's happening internally, even though we practice with sound, right? We're still kind of going inward in the practice. And then when we open our eyes or raise our gaze to that object, we can, okay, now I have 20% with the object and 80% in my heart and my body, my mind. And then we can just give a little bit more to the object, maybe 20% more. So now we have 60% in the, 40% in the object, 60% on the body, the mind, the heart. And just feeling what that feels like when we let our awareness move externally. And we can sort of get some dexterity over how much awareness we place on, in our practice, on a conversation. So if we're talking to an individual, we can modulate how much we're noticing what's happening for that person and what's happening internally at the same time. Very often in conversation, we get kind of, if they're telling a really active story, a lively story, we might get really absorbed. And we lose track of how that story and how the words are landing on our own body, our own mind, our own heart, right? Or if we really care about somebody, right, we might really offer them a lot of our attention, a lot of our awareness at the expense of what's happening for ourselves. And then I think probably the most common is when we're in conversation and somebody's talking and we're formulating a response. And then we're really, where we might be hearing them maybe 20% and 80% is happening, what's happening internally, right? Because they may have said something a minute or two before that really brought up something for us. And so now we're chewing on that and we're not hearing their words anymore. Right? So this technique of modulating and titrating where we're placing our awareness can be super helpful in cultivating mindful communication. Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit here about active listening. And it's one of the reasons why I opened today's guided meditation with that emphasis on hearing, right? And then towards the end of the practice, recalling a time when we were really heard and how good that felt. Right? That can really inspire us to become good, active listeners, right? And so there are a couple of techniques that I'll speak to here around active listening. And the first is to arrive to the conversation with curiosity. With curiosity. Even if we've, talked to this person a million times before, to arrive fresh into the present moment. And I wonder what this person's going to say today. Or I wonder what's going on for this person, what's happening for them in their life. Right? Remember, every moment is a new moment, and every moment we're changing. And so that can keep us right on the edge of our engagement with the other person or the other people, right? If we're really curious, what matters for this person, we could ask, right? What's meaningful? What needs are they speaking to in their speech and in their body movement? And that curiosity helps us move into a state of equanimity, of non-judgment. Right? If we're really, really, truly curious about somebody, we can't be judging them at the same time. Right? Because judgment about somebody implies that we think we know who and what they are, and as opposed to who and what they should be. Right? There's no room for curiosity there at all. So if we can move into that curiosity, that removes any type of prejudice. So we're more open to hear their words as they're being offered, rather than hearing their words through the lens of what we hope they would be saying. Super important for active listening. Another technique is to kind of, it's helpful if we can, and mindfulness can be really helpful with this, to sort of let our own inner dialogue rest while we're listening. Right? And this is speaking to what I was just mentioning a few moments ago, where we often are formulating a response internally to what somebody is saying. Right? So the invitation is to just let that rest and really take in what's being offered. And one of my teachers likes to say, it's almost like when we lean in to smell a flower. I love that metaphor, right? Because when we lean in to take in a fragrance, whether it's a flower, aromatherapy, I have some lavender burning here in the background. We lean in to take that fragrance in. If we're thinking about another fragrance, going to actually influence how we take in that smell. If I lean in to smell lavender and I'm thinking about chocolate, that there's going to be some confusion there. Right? So we have to kind of let all of that settle and rest, and then we lean in to hear what's being offered. We allow the words to land in our heart in that way. Right? And then for me, I find it helpful to bring in this quality of care and compassion into active listening. And there are many ways of doing that. There's a meditation practice called Just Like Me. I have a few of those on my podcast page, but if you're interested, you can message me and I'll send you a recording, a link. And just like me, basically you go through the meditation, visualizing, imagining different people. Could be a stranger, could be a loved one, could be a friend, could be somebody you don't like very well. But when we imagine this person, then we say to ourselves, just like me, this person wants to be loved. Just like me, this person wants to treat other people kindly. Just like me, this person has been angry and hurt sometimes, and so forth. There's several phrases. And so we really connect to the other person's common humanity. And so when I'm approaching a conversation, any conversation, I'll often, as I'm moving into that conversation, say to myself, just like me, this person wants to be loved. Or I might even say, because I've done the practice quite a bit, that type of meditation, I might even just say the word, just like me. Just like me. Right? So that once you do the practice repeatedly, you start to really feel the phrases, and just that key phrase can bring us back into that place of compassion. Just like me. Just like me, this person wants to be held and heard and seen. Right? Also, there is a way of doing a practice called Tonglen, a Tibetan compassion practice, and it can be done in just one breath, where you breathe in, and on that in-breath, you take in the other person's struggle. And as you breathe out, you send them your kindness and joy. Just one breath like that. So you breathe in, you take in their struggle. You breathe out, you send them joy and kindness and appreciation. This too is a really wonderful way of allowing us to settle into a compassionate space in our conversations and in our communication. I mentioned communication because a great deal of our communication is nonverbal, right? And so even if and you might have had this experience, even if we're with somebody who's speaking very kindly or speaking very compassionately, but their body language is very abrasive or contracted or closed, we feel that, right? We notice there's a discrepancy there, right? And so that can be unsettling. And we might leave that exchange, that interaction, unsettled without being very clear why, right? Something just didn't feel correct or it didn't land well, right? And, just to speak to this quality of compassion in communication, or kindness in communication, very often I get the doubts from people, if I'm, really kind or really compassionate in my communication, how will I be able to assert myself? And, when we really explore that, and this is something we're definitely going to take a deep dive into in the 12-week course, there's no contradiction there, right? I can be very direct and kind at the same time. And in fact, that's often a move of self-compassion. That solid no is a move of self-care, right? And we can offer that solid no without, you know, a stream of disparaging comments after it, right? We can just say no. No, it's not happening. Clear and kind, right? Now, of course, there's a lot more to it than that. And in the course, we explore what that feels like in the body, because a clear, precise no has a certain somatic experience to it, right? It's very often a kind of an armoring up or a contracting, maybe a tension in the abdomen or in the jaw. And we might even feel like we're kind of leaning back a little bit, right? Almost retreating in the body. And you can try this, you can explore this as I'm speaking, right? And as opposed to a yes, what does yes feel like? What's the somatic marker of yes, right? And for me, when I say the word yes, you can see my hands. It's all like a leaning in, right? And there's a softening and opening in the body, and a softening in the abdomen, and an opening around the heart area. And I sense that I'm smiling a little bit more. My eyes are smiling a little bit more. And we can also explore the somatic marker of maybe. What does maybe feel like? Maybe, maybe. You just say it a few times. Maybe, maybe. It's kind of like a hovering. And if you like music, maybe is kind of like the part of the symphony just before the resolution. Maybe. It's kind of like almost a suspense, like that. And these are my somatic experiences. You might have different somatic experiences, and that's fine. That's fine. So I think I've spoken long enough for today. If you have any questions or comments or shares, please do feel free to post them underneath the video in the comments, or you can email me, chrisluard@yahoo.com. You can find my email through the website, suchsweetthunder.org. Also, if you want to register for the course, you could do that through the website as well. Yeah. And yeah, I hope to see you all on the course, either this one or the Awakened Living course, which is a year-long program. Both are going to be very deep dives. And although both courses are a deep dive, I did want to mention that they're appropriate for any experience level. Beginners are welcome, intermediate, advanced meditators, everyone's welcome, and would get great benefit from the course. Okay, I'll leave us on that note, and I'll ring the bell to close us out. Thank you. Thank you.